My name is Athena, and I just have a few things to say. I've had a lot on my mind, and I've listened to a lot of people on a lot of subjects, and I've been thinking about how I was going to do my, first audio, and I'm still not quite sure, but, I want to start making some content because I think that my perspective is just as valuable as anybody else who's speaking about things that actually affect our lives. Um, and one of the things I want to talk about is our judicial system. I think it's the one thing that I have the most beef with because there is no justice left in it. And there's a few different reasons why I say that, but one of the main reasons why I think that the judicial system has become irreconcilably corrupt is because of concepts like loopholes and red tape and exceptions. So, for instance, our Declaration of Independence says that we all have God-given, unalienable rights that are recognized as being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but not for the unborn. And in the 1970s, we made an exception and said the ones who do not have that right are the ones who are not viable. And viability is a very interesting word because it doesn't just apply to infants. There's a potential future where viability could actually apply to the disabled, the sick, the elderly, and that's a huge social crisis. The value of human life being decreased legally, culturally, socially, that's the worst thing that we could do to ourselves. That's the worst traitorous to our own species thing that we could possibly do. But we do it. We've devalued human life. Now we might as well be its by the way our government and the system treats us. Just a number, just a thing, just an item, just a piece of data, whatever. There's another thing that's happened because of abortion besides the devaluing of human life. And that is reproductive rights. So it's been argued that men have no reproductive rights, and I would agree with that in a general type of statement. But here's where things get really upsetting for me. For instance, I am a rape and incest survivor. I got pregnant with my biological father's child when I was 14. I found out when I was 15. And I read a book that told the different perspectives from the different choices that women have post-choice. And reading that book helped me realize that there was no way in hell I would ever be able to have an abortion. But adoption and keeping the child seemed like two very real options for me. So I considered these two options basically my entire pregnancy and even after. But that's because of circumstance. However, after he was convicted, my offender, after he was convicted and sentenced, they still gave him parental rights over my son when it came to court while he was a ward of the state. It was a pretty traumatic experience, honestly, to have my rapist, who is my dad, have rights to my son, whether I can sign a paper or not over him. So for people to say that men have no reproductive rights, yes, when the baby is in the womb, they really don't have any reproductive rights. But they have so many rights when the baby is outside of the womb that even your rapist can get rights to your child. And here's just one of those extremely disturbing, in-your-face flaws. Just one flaw, but it shows the severity of the flaws, many flaws in the system. So if a man wants to keep his baby and wants to support the baby, and for whatever reason the mother doesn't want to have the baby, she can have an abortion and he has no say, and that's wrong. Yes. The man should absolutely, be able to say whether or not I want to be a father or not. And that includes when the baby is born. If he doesn't want to be a part of the baby's life and doesn't want to have to pay child support, he should be able to sign something that says, I relinquish my rights over to the mother. And then it's done, right? It also shouldn't be something like in my personal case, the father of my child, my second child, I was a teenager still, and my second child was born, and the father was much older than me, and he didn't get charged with statutory or anything, and that was fine by me. I mean, I didn't think he should have to go to jail. I saw myself as an adult anyway because I was already a mother, and that sort of changes the way you see yourself. So anyway, later we came into a contract agreement because I moved out of state and wanted to stay, and he argued that my daughter needed a father in his life, and I agreed with that. So I signed a piece of paper multiple times over saying that he would get her for 4 months out of the year, and that I would get her for the remainder of the time, every year. And I thought this was fair. But when it came time for me to get her, he wouldn't allow it, tried to add new terms to it, just refused to let me go get her, basically. And so I had to go file a police report, go to Special Victims Unit, blah, blah, blah. And then interstate interference of custody was filed against him, right? And it was filed in my state, and she was a resident of my state before she went to go live with him. Anyway, somehow his state ended up claiming jurisdiction. I don't know how it happened, but they did. I don't know why it happened, but they did. His state claimed jurisdiction. And then I tried to file for legal assistance to fight now this court battle 2,000 miles away in another state. And they refused, even though I had qualified, because I wasn't a resident of that state. Didn't matter that I had to go to court for my daughter in that state. I couldn't get legal aid in that state, and I needed that state's lawyer to represent me. I couldn't just take a lawyer from my state, and the states don't cross over that way. Law doesn't cross over that way for states, and it's civil, it's not federal. So it's all just so amazing. And I feel like someone who doesn't have any kind of gender bias or any of that kind of nonsense or any of that kind of right-left thinking, that compartmentalized thinking to address these issues from a perspective that isn't like your typical feminist who portrays themselves as like a man-hater, or the other way, the MG Towels who come across as total women haters. This is more than just men and women. This is about parents. This is about parenting. This is about families. This is about children. This is about the future. This is about the next generations, the generations now and the generations to come that are growing up in this mess, where pedophiles get less time in jail than drug dealers, where a mother like me can end up having to pay child support for a baby of hers to a man who, broke the law. Broke the law. I had parental rights. He was keeping her away from me. That's interstate interference with custody. Somehow he got it in his jurisdiction. Had a bunch of people come up and pretty much commit perjury. And then I was sentenced to pay back child support for the child from the time that I had her, from the time that I gave birth. It was wild because I had custody. It made no sense to me. Anyway, so now I have no way of paying that kind of money, and I never did, and I never get to see her. And this is the kind of thing. My daughter is suffering. And she's not the only one. There's so many kids suffering right now because women aren't the only ones who hold that child and say, no, you're never going to get this child, out of spite or resentment or fear of, losing meaning to their life. My ex would harass me and say, if you don't let me be a part of her life, I'm going to kill myself. And I had just moved away. I wasn't trying to keep him out of her life. I just didn't want to be there in that life. I had to get away. Anyway, so yeah, it's not just men, it's women too. And it's not just men and women, it's families, it's parental rights. If there's anything that's on the chopping block most, it's parental rights. And nobody is understanding this. No one seems to get that there's something bigger than individual rights and something bigger than individual freedom, and that's the right to your own offspring, and provided that you're not a monster. Okay, anybody who rapes a child, anybody who sexually abuses a child should hang from the gallows, and I don't care what anybody else has to say about that. That's justice. And if you don't do that, you're going to invite a plague. And that's what's happened. We have millions of pedophiles now. Billions of new child porn images are uploaded to the internet every single day. Why is this? Because the parents aren't around. Why is this? Because Child Protective Services. Why? Because they're run by the government. Oh, there's the problem. Government has now completely overstepped its bounds. And I know that this didn't happen in my country. Okay, little Alfie Evans. He happened in another Western country, in Britain, right? But it's a prime example of what I'm talking about, the overreach of government in our personal affairs, such as how we raise our kids. Okay, they say I'm not fit to raise my kids because of medical neglect. Are you serious? Serious. Medical neglect. What is this? This is charge that they can put on you and they don't have to prove. Or why? Because when you go into family court, you're innocent. You're guilty until proven innocent. It's the only time you walk into a courtroom and you're guilty until proven innocent. Our court system, the more and more I look at it, the deeper I dig, the more I realize it's all about money.